Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be reviewing the Nike PG1s. This shoe is in the Shining colorway. You might be wondering where's the laces. I actually took them out and I'll explain why during my review. However, this pair specifically, there was only 12,000 made, I believe. And if you can see back here in the heel, it's not very visible, but right there you can see some numbering. And the last four digits right here, mine is the 3,478th pair, and it goes up to I think 12 digits, and that's the pair I have or that's made. Again, this pair is also size 10, and I also took out the insoles, which I'll explain later in the video. This I think came out and retailed for 110, I believe, and this came out in March 3rd of 2017, right? I think right before PG's playoffs in Indiana, right before he left, right, to OKC. So, and this shoe, by the way, it looks amazing. In my opinion, it's one of the best looking silhouettes or models I've seen, just like stylistic wise. This looks just very clean, doesn't it? Especially in this colorway, like, come on, this is sick, right? So, yeah, let's start getting into this review. So, let's talk about the uppers first. For $110, these uppers feel great, okay? So, obviously, this mesh part right here, again, it feels cheap, the mesh here and here, but like around here, here, and here. This is all mesh material, right? There's a toe box here, and there's a toe guard, which I do appreciate. It's not as hard as like in the Kyrie's, which I reviewed previously, but it's there, right, to protect your foot. But the mesh feels cheap, but it also feels very thin and it feels supportive, right? So it compromises for that. Also, here you probably notice there's a strap, and this strap does do something. It does make your foot feel far more secure, because if it didn't have that, this layer would just be mesh, and you wouldn't feel as secure. Now, this combines fly wire, I believe, right? And then when you pull down on it, it tightens it, and then once you put it on the Velcro, it'll tighten up even more, and it overlays your forefoot, and it locks you in, right? So this shoe, by the way, it fits extremely tight. Just for reference, like I would say the Kyrie 3s fit snug, the Kyrie 4s fit snug to true to size, the Kyrie 7 fits true to size to slightly long. These are one of the most snug shoes I have in a size 10, right? And that's actually one of the reasons why I took these insoles out. So, by the way, if you look, this is an Ortholite insole. However, this is one of the thickest Ortholite insoles I've seen, right? And similarly in the PG3s and I believe the other models, they all have thicker Ortholite insoles. Now these do compress down and they'll feel much better, but initially, like when I first got these, my foot felt uncomfortable just because of how thick the insole was. And when I replaced it with something thinner, like for example this one, which I've worn down, and I put this insole in most of my shoes, just because on the ball of my foot it feels super thin and minimal, and then there's enough cushioning, but it compresses like just the right amount, and it has sidewalls on the heel. So when I put this insole into these shoes, it fits far better than when I put these thick insoles into the PG ones. So that's very noticeable. If I recommend you to get this shoe, I would recommend you to go half size up. Although in like, for example, PG3s, which I'll review in a future video, for those I tried size 10 and they felt snug to true to size. Not as snug as these, definitely not as snug as these. And I actually bought a 10 and a half, and those felt really long. Like it felt I could put my thumb in the back in the heel, and it still doesn't feel secure. So just be careful. Obviously, you can't try these on nowadays, since they're not. They might Pro these, but if they do, you wouldn't be able to buy these in store, I'm assuming, or it'll just be really hard. So be careful with sizing, and then I'd say it fits more snug than later models of the PG, right? So continuing with the upper, But once you get past this initial mesh layer, again, I feel like any midfoot strap is a premium, you know, feature, and especially with the Flywire, and especially because of how wide and just like strong this midfoot strap feels. I do really appreciate this. And then this leather material on the back, all the way here, this feels extremely premium. It feels high quality. The iridescent swoosh looks very good. This model right here, this is the preheat or shining colorway, just to be specific. And I love the detail on the bottom of the yellow PG logo, and then the 2 zoom air units on the bottom, which I'll talk about later. But the uppers feel great, and the material varies from model to model, but they don't feel cheap, and they don't feel other than the mesh. But I mean, for $110, I can't complain about materials. And once you put these on, it feels like so one-to-one, so nicely snug, that it feels like the shoe was made for you, right? And the reason why I took the laces off, and these are nice laces, right? And the tip is also shiny and iridescent, and they glow a little bit. So it's not like these laces don't fit the shoe or anything, but as you can see here, these laces are pretty short, right? And it's because the PG1 only has 4 lace eyelets. 1, 2, 3, 4. Most shoes have around 5 at least to 7, depending on if it's a low top or high top. And the laces start here, you know, above the strap. So there's really no lacing before the strap. I actually think that's fine, because, you know, if there was, the strap would like tear the laces and cause them to fray, which isn't smart. Whereas the laces aren't touching the strap at all. However, even with like just having 4 holes, these laces, when I tie them down, it's always like the final like knot feels very short, right? I recommend, maybe, you know, if you're wearing these for more performance, maybe like switch these out for laces slightly longer than these, because the upper is so supportive, and although, you know, there's a layer between the leather and then the sock liner, but it connects back right here. So although there's a hole here, here it wraps around your foot, right? So even without the laces, these feel very supportive. I can play in the shoe without the laces, which is insane, right? But that's also because this is a 1 booty upper, which means that the tongue is completely attached to the shoe, right? So to put the shoe on, it's slightly harder, and because there's no pull tab in the front, you basically have to like spread the shoe out like this, and then like slide your foot in. Now the heel counter isn't like super substantial, and there's no like, I'd say if you bend this enough and you push down, it will deform, but it will still maintain shape and keep your heel locked in. It's just, it's not like a hard heel counter, right? It's a softer heel counter. So just when you put the shoe and when you take the shoe on and off, be more careful. Don't try to like wear down the heel counter and compress it, because it will just become softer and not as supportive over time. Okay, now moving on to the outsole of this shoe. Well, actually, let's talk about the tongue first. Again, it's a 1 booty upper, and it feels you know, very nice on top of your foot. There is slight pinching in the laces because the tongue isn't that thick. As you can see, it's quite a thin tongue. But honestly, just because of how nice the uppers feel, I can really excuse them for the tongue. And I feel like if the tongue was more plush, I honestly, if they made the tongue ever so slightly thicker, it might make the shoe profile a little bit, you know, not as nice. So maybe just add a layer on top of like more plasticky. So or like make a pull tab, so where you tie your laces down, you won't have as much pinching. But there is a little bit of pinching on the shoe. However, once you break these in, you'll feel fine in these. I wouldn't worry about it too much, right? Okay. Yeah, let's talk about the outsole. So this traction is soft and hard at the same time. You can move your finger on it, and I've worn these outside. Wouldn't recommend that. I'd say like if you're wearing outdoor shoes, you want to have cushion and you want it to be something that you can really play in. And I don't want to damage these. I want to keep these in good condition, so I kind of worn these casually outside. However, this is not an outdoor shoe. This is more of an indoor shoe. Obviously, I have this iridescent traction right here. In solid outsole colorways, it's actually a little bit better, and the rubber is a little bit softer, but it's not soft rubber. And one more thing, like right at the ball of your foot right here, it's actually this like one line of rubber that's kind of like creating a lot of the traction. And it starts off flat at first. Obviously, this is a very flat outsole, right? But then the more you wear it and the more this wears down, the more like conforming it feels, right? So overall, this is more of a stable shoe. Obviously, PG is a really shifty player. However, these are more for if you want to, I'd say face up your defender, and then you also want to play both ways, right? And these just look like, I can't get over just the look of these shoes. I think this is like one of, I'd say a top 5 shoe silhouette ever. These just look great, right? So let's talk about the caging right here. So this little piece of foam, and this foam is Phylon again. This does go up a little bit to prevent your foot from sliding up down the footbed, and because of this strap, this plastic rubber part does come up a little bit to the midsole and cages the midsole. So honestly, forefoot compression, and that's one more thing about the shoe, is that there is a zoom unit in the front. You feel it a little bit, but the thing is that this zoom unit is quite thin, and then there is still another layer of foam right on top of this zoom unit. So this is bottom loaded zoom, and also it does protrude slightly, as you can see from the midsole. If you line it up right there, yeah, so you can see it. It's raised slightly higher, so when you're let's say you're on the court, when you press down a little bit on it, you do feel the zoom a little bit, but it's not as noticeable as like in the 3s or in the 4s, which have a similar forefoot setup, right? So it does feel a bit more dull, right? And the cushion in the heel, again, the more you play in the cushion, it feels stiff. Obviously, it's Phylon, but it's not caged at all. At least on not it's caged on the medial side, but it you feel something. It's not like it feels like nothing. It feels solid. So I wouldn't say like it's the worst setup. It's not good cushioning, but it's solid performance based cushioning. And honestly, for more performance playing, I think a stiffer cushioning is not bad. And it's just that most players nowadays, they play in mushy shoes that, I feel like stiff shoes are fine. Like, there's no issue with that. It's just your foot needs to get used to it. So, but I'd say cushioning isn't a strong suit in the shoe. It is low to the ground, and it is very flat and stable. And there's a very good heel to toe transition. Look how much it rolls, right? And it's very seamless. There is no outsole curvature, but there is traction that goes up to the medial side. So this is not really for that, shifty movement, but there is a little bit. You see, when you're on the ball of your foot, it's this line right here and then this line right here. So it's not like one sharp line where that's the only line sticking. It's actually 2 sharp lines, so it makes it slightly better of a transition. However, it's if you want outsole curvature, this is not the shoe for you. Or if that's something that you're really looking for, look towards like a Kyrie or something else, right? There is also a nice lateral outrigger right here. It's not super noticeable, but it does do something. The only reason why it wobbles here is mainly because of the outsole. Again, the zoom unit is poking up, and these zoom units, it can pop. However, mine hasn't yet, and honestly, it won't make a huge difference. Again, if you're buying this shoe to feel bouncy or to feel the zoom, again, this is not the shoe for you. This shoe is for someone who really likes nice uppers and then really appreciates the fit of this shoe, and then also doesn't care about cushioning that much, cares about support, and then wants to have like a game shoe, right? That's more for someone like this, and maybe plays a bit more defense because of just how supporting these uppers feel. Now this is a low top, and your ankle mobility feels pretty nice in these overall. it's not like the most fluid shoe moving your foot around, but it secures you where you need to feel secure, and then you have range of motion, right? Which is nice. Moving on to like just the implementation of the midsole. So here, as you can see, it is kind of, it's not decoupled, but the logo right here and the logo also won't touch the whatever court you're playing on. So if you can slide a piece of paper under there and it won't touch the logo, or like this part, there's like kind of like an arch. It arches like inward, like kind of like this, right? Yeah. So it's only here and here. And overall, I'd give this a good traction score of like 7.5 to 8 out of 10. Again, on indoor courts, I always recommend you wipe your shoes. Again, I think obviously there's some shoes they have softer rubber, they don't pick up much dust, and those are elite tractions. I wouldn't say this is elite traction. However, it's not bad traction, and when you wipe, you'll be fine. This is your standard good traction, right, from Nike. No issues there. There is a shank. Again, I think it's top loaded. Pretty narrow, like a rectangular shank. And the torsional support on the shoe is good. Again, most Phylon shoes, the torsional support is good just because the foam is stiff, and there is not much forefoot flex, like, so this is a very like not flexible shoe, right? The uppers feel like it's stuck to your foot, and then the midsole is not it's responsive, but it's a little bit clunky for someone who maybe wants a little bit more assistance from their shoes, right? So this is not necessarily if you're looking for like the midsole to support you a bit better, might not be the shoe for you. So overall, I'd say the materials are very nice on this shoe for the price, and then the durability on the outsole, it will last, but I'm a little bit worried about the zoom unit, so I'd keep these indoors, right? What I noticed playing the shoe is, again, the uppers. The uppers make the shoe. Again, if you really don't like, putting on your shoe and then getting the fit right, and adjusting your shoe before you play, and you just want to throw the shoes on, this might not be the shoe for you, because you have to put the strap on, you have to tie it the right way where it doesn't pinch, you have to put your feet in there, which takes a little bit long time. And the ventilation of the shoe, obviously the mesh is it breathes okay, but the rest of the uppers, not that breathable. Your feet will feel pretty warm in these, although I always say ventilation and heat trapping shouldn't be your priority when it comes to basketball shoes. Support is far more important, right? And I feel like as long as you're playing hard, you're sweating, and you're in socks, don't worry about ventilation, because if that comes at the expense of support, then it's not worth it. Okay. One more thing I noticed playing these shoes is I think this does feel clunky in certain aspects. Like if you're saying, oh, how well do these perform? I'd say this is a pretty mediocre performing shoe, or even below average, especially compared to modern shoes right now. However, the upper just makes up for like the bad performing aspects of the shoe. And also there's a nice heel tab, which I haven't pointed out yet, and it's stitched pretty deep into the upper, so some heel tabs they tear and stuff. This will tear if you pull really hard, but it's pretty secure, so that's nice. Also, the heel shape, it is not necessarily rounded, but also one nice thing is that it's slightly more rounded on the medial side, and then on the outside right here, because the foam isn't caged right here, it's honestly not a deal breaker. And then also I like the density of the heel, right? Just pressing down on it, the heel feels nice. Like even for Phylon standards, it's not like your super stiff Phylon in the threes, and it feels like it has every part that you need in the heel, and you don't feel like, oh, the heel is too high or too low. It's just right, in my opinion. And then it does come a little bit to cage the side, and it feels there's no restricting like feeling towards it. It feels pretty nice in the heel. Overall, this shoe is for someone, I'd say, who wants like subtle a little bit of a pop in the front. This is not a super bouncy shoe by any means. Who likes solid traction, who doesn't care much for cushioning, who likes a real, true one-to-one glove-like fit, and then who doesn't mind like adjusting their shoe a little bit until they can really play, who obviously really likes a stylish silhouette because these look great. I'd say this is one of the best looking basketball shoes I've seen. And also, I'd say if you want something again, this feels very much like a game shoe, and I keep saying that because this feels like a game shoe for some bigger player who wants the shoe to protect, wants the uppers to protect them, but not the midsole. You know what I mean? So sometimes they do a little bit of both, whereas it's mainly the uppers that's doing the protection. I'd say the one thing that this shoe can improve in is the midsole. I like the heel a lot, but I think it's just because the forefoot isn't great. That the heel kind of like, I'm looking for a nice thing to say about the heel. However, the forefoot is quite dead even with the zoom unit and it protruding a little bit. It's just not implemented well because it's bottom loaded and there's foam there. So, if they were to ever Pro Tour these, I'd recommend them cut off the Phylon in the front. There should be no, Phylon where the zoom unit is, and just make the zoom unit, instead of it being like a really thin one, make it thicker. And that would fix all issues with the shoe. It'll feel bouncier, it'll feel more lively, it'll feel better in the forefoot, and it will keep all the performance aspects of the shoe, right? Overall, final score of the shoe, I would give this shoe a 74 out of 100. 100 being a perfect shoe, right? It has its clear flaws, being the cushion, and I would say mainly the cushion, and it has its strength, which is the uppers. But for certain players, this could feel like a very bad shoe, and then for certain players, this could be their favorite shoe, right? So it just varies on the player. But if you love a very good fitting shoe, look no further. These aren't necessarily wide foot or narrow foot friendly. These are very standard size again, I'd say. Like some shoes, they just feel wider than others and more accommodating. These aren't necessarily that. And these fit short for a 10, and these fit snug for the most part. So again, I'd give these a 74 out of 100. And yeah, I'd recommend, I'd say, playing always indoors in these, and then also these are more for a game setting where you aren't guarding laterally as much, right? I feel like if you're a power forward who likes ground contact, these are great. But for shifty guards, like it has the support, but it just doesn't have it just feels clunky, right? So it might not be the best option. This is for a flat-footed player, right, who likes the support but doesn't care about cushion and plays indoors. But this is also a game shoe, which again is very specific, right? This is made for Paul George, so this is not a shoe that is like one shoe fits all. This is definitely not the most well-rounded shoe. There's plenty more better, more well-rounded shoes, but for the right player, look no further than Nike PG1. Okay, and that concludes the video. If you enjoyed this video, please ask any questions in the comments, and check out some of my other reviews, right? I'll try to be consistent and post a couple shoe reviews every single day, and you can maybe suggest some shoes that you want me to review, and I'll let you know if I can get a pair of those, or if I already have a pair, and I'll review them very shortly. Take care.